Hello and welcome to another Solution Sunday, because the soul is the solution. I'm Lisa Warner. I'm the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing, a book that I wrote after I healed myself from cancer by simply shifting the way I looked at things. And when I shifted the way I looked at things, I shifted the set of eyes that I was using. Instead of looking through my physical eyes, I started looking through the eyes of my soul, and I saw a completely different perspective. And today we are here with my good friend, Lisa LaFrance, and she is an earth guardian, a luminary, an intuitive guide, a pilgrim with a cause, and a #1 international best-selling author. And she is here to teach us how to be in this world. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to hear what's going to be unfolding.
Yes, today we're really here to talk about looking through the eyes of the soul. We are grand beings of light. We are souls who have chosen to come into physical form, to have a physical experience, but we're not physical beings. We are non-physical beings, but we're trained to look through our physical eyes, and we're trained to look at the physical world. And we're also taught that if it's not physical, then it's not real. But this is where we fall into the biggest trap of them all. So we're going to talk about how we switch the way we look at things so we can start seeing through the bigger picture, through the eyes of our soul. So Lisa, what do you think about looking through the eyes of the soul?
Well, for me, it's what happened was like when you have that awareness, what happens, what happened was like I looked out and I realized that actually when you look out, your brain is already behind for a few milliseconds. I think 50 milliseconds, your brain has to process all that. And so you're already behind. So if you think about what you see, you're already behind. And then I was thinking how it actually works, and I'm sure you know this, is when the light travels into your eye, goes into your brain, and then it reflects back out. So basically, it's looking out the window. It's just really a reflection of your perception. So whatever, and that could be also from what you're bringing in, your beliefs, from your beliefs. And so really be having an awareness for that is key. I think the first one is like having that awareness that that's what's happening. And I mean, if you think about that, it's just a reflection of that and of what you perceive. Then what do you perceive? So what I teach too is closing your eyes and using your body sense and noticing what you can see with your being, with your body. And if you think about that also, when the light comes into your eyes and it reflects out, that's like the light. So that's your inner light. And if you take away all those perceptions, that would be your true divine light. And when you can tie into that light and you could close your eyes and that light would flow out of you, I feel like you could totally flow into the light of the divine from above and beyond and around us and everything. And since we know everything is energy, I mean, isn't that beautiful? If you think, if I make myself clear, it's like you could tap into that light and the divine eye. So the divine vision, the divine eye, you could see clearly through that light that's pure and truth, and not that light of yourself with those perceptions.
Mhm.
And I feel like when you tap into that, there's just so much more truth. And we don't need our eyes. We can close our eyes for that. We think, this is something I teach in more like my modalities is teach them to stand up and close their eyes. And even just standing up with your eyes closed can be a challenge for some people. And then move yourself on one foot or the other, and keeping your eyes closed could be a challenge. So we realize how much we use our eyes to keep us even stable and to have motion. And we're not designed to even use our eyes for that. I mean, so we overuse our eyes almost, like it's like almost an overuse to do things that do not really designed to do. But we're so being conditioned for that. So it's like a different way of looking or thinking of things.
Yeah, we've been taught how to think, and we've been taught what to look at and what to focus on. And because we are creator beings, we create our beliefs, our thoughts become things. And when we're taught what to think and what to focus on, we simply create those things. And most of those things kind of make us suffer, usually.
Yeah. And like at first they are thought and then they are created. So
Exactly.
be really careful what you're thinking here. Like going back to your mindset, your beliefs, and where do they come from? Are they even yours?
There you go. That's the key question, because when we really start to look at it, we've just been taught what to think right from the get-go. We've been taught all our ideas about God and what life is and what we're supposed to do in this world and how we're supposed to be. And it's none of those things are authentic to ourselves, because we are each completely unique souls.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to have these connections, these one-on-ones or these podcasts or whatnot, so we can share with each other and bring awareness to each other, because I think we all learn from speaking it out and hearing it. At least I do.
Yeah.
I learn from hearing myself speak and from others, and I definitely am. That's the way my mind functions, is when I hear you reflected back to me, is when my awareness opens up or I expand, I would say.
Exactly.
And if you think about this, so many people still don't know. And I mean, we all are evolving and expanding, but a lot of people are still so mired in that conditioning,
Yeah.
and that suffering. And there's so much freedom to be had, to just be you, to just let it all be. And I think it's exciting. I really am. I'm excited because I see it happening more and more. So I'm so excited. People that I'm around with, sometimes they are like so negative and talk about, oh, this is bad, this is bad. But I see it changing. I really see it elevating and changing, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, this is the great awakening, the shift of consciousness, where we
Yeah.
shift dimensions. We start to leave that dimension of limitation and suffering and lack and move back into our divine nature as creators, where we can really start creating heaven on earth. When we look at this beautiful planet that we live on, that provides everything we need, when we simply share, when we simply honor the planet and we honor all of the gifts that she gives to us, we can live these amazing lives, really heaven on earth in this Garden of Eden. And it's time for us to start seeing that as humanity.
I really believe that when you were saying like heaven or earth, that really hit me because I believe that too.
Mhm.
And I think like a really quick way to get there, or like a good practice, is to practice gratitude. Then you can shift it really quickly. And opening your eyes, not necessarily to, well, also those eyes, to the beautiful miracles of everyday life, like the mundane,
Mm,
sacred miracles, you know.
yeah,
I that is what creates heaven on earth, isn't it? When you notice the little, I call it the little things, and people say it's not a little thing. I'm like, yes, I get it. It's not a little thing, but it's the little things.
exactly. We're trained to look at the death and destruction and devastation, because it's being broadcast 24/7. Yeah, but then we miss all of the miracles. Even if you think about, if you break a bone, when you all you do is set it, and the body does the rest. It mends itself back together, and it mends itself even stronger than it was before. Like, that's a miracle. Hardly anybody recognizes something so mundane as a miracle, but it really is.
Yeah, I think we have really been conditioned to at look at it completely wrong,
Exactly.
like everything. And I wonder, I mean, I've been wondering when that started, but I'm sure, I mean, it's always it's always for power or politics, or not a good thing that it starts. I mean, it probably goes back since the beginning of us. Yeah, I'm just reflecting on that.
Yeah,
And
well, I mean, I look at it as we're grand beings of light, and but we're here exploring the dark. And the only way we can explore what it's like to suffer or be in pain is literally to believe that we're the opposite of who we are. In order to live in fear, like, we have to believe that we're victims, that we're vulnerable, that we're little, that we're small. So the only way to accomplish that is to hypnotize ourselves into believing that we're the opposite of who we are, to believe that we're just merely mortals. So
mhm.
the way I look at it is, this whole game, we have set this up for ourselves, and to give us the opportunity to explore all of these dark emotions, sort of like, like the actor taking the role of being the serial killer. It's not who he is. Like, but he can explore that role and really dive in and explore all those emotions. But at the end of the day, he's still whoever he is as the actor. It's like, at the end of the day, we're still the soul. We're still these grand divine beings of light, but we're here exploring these roles of, being the limited human.
I know. Sometimes I wonder, it's like, why did I choose this body? Why did I
Right.
choose this from? It's like, oh, I had this to learn, or that, that to experience. So yeah, it's interesting to think about. Yeah, and it's really nice to think about. I mean, what brings me peace is to think about that we are energy, and we will just change but never die, and yeah, I mean, that really brings me peace.
Exactly. When we realize that we are eternal beings, that we can't possibly die. Like,
Hmm.
we can step out of the physical body, but we're still exactly the same who we are. We keep going. And when we start to realize that, wait a second, death is the biggest illusion of them all. But as long as we continue to, as a species, as long as we continue to believe in death, we have to continue to die, because we have to continue to explore our beliefs. And we are making our beliefs physical. So if we believe that we die, then the body has to crap out on us at some point so that we can go, oh, that was the illusion. Oh,
Yeah, I have different views on how the body dies anyway. I mean, I don't believe we have to die when we're like what, 100 or whatever. I think we can live way beyond that.
absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. Yep. When I was a really, really little girl, like 2, 3 years old, I would lay in my bed at night and I would have these grand awarenesses. I could look at humanity. I could see the amnesia. I could see that people had forgotten who they were. I, in that moment, was just part of this infinite field of love and light, and knowing that that was the eternal state. And then I could look at humanity and go, they all forgot. Like, and I knew in that time that, I could see with my mind's eye, I could see all of these old people in nursing homes with these bodies that they couldn't function anymore. And I knew that that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And I knew that we were supposed to be able to live far, far, far longer than we are living. But then I looked out at the world and went, wow, obviously people don't do that around here. So, like, what I know to be true must not be available here. So
Mhm.
that was kind of the assumption that I, as a 2 or 3 year old, made, was that, wow, everything that I know to be true isn't available here. So
Mhm.
it's like, wow, now what do I do?
It's really beautiful to hear that you had this, and so much sadness too when I hear you say that you adjusted to the world, but you reawakened. So that's beautiful. I didn't have an experience like that. I wish I had. I just remember my grandma, and I was raised in a town in Switzerland, in a monastery town. So lots, but church and monastery and up in the mountains. And we used to go to church 2 or 3 times a week. We used to go with the school and we used to go with the family. And so that's a thing you did, tradition that you did and all this. And I remember being in the building and not really buying into. I remember being 7 or 8, I think around that time. I was quite young. Not, I knew then that what the pastor priest was saying was not truth. I knew you could talk straight to source, to the divine. I knew that. And I remember that feeling of belonging to that by, and I used the senses, just our senses, because I felt like that's all I knew at that time. But I knew that, like, I felt it through the incense that I could smell, and the music, the choir, the singing at the monastery and in the church, the pat the what do you call them, the monks that used to sing, and I could being there and just look at the ceiling and all the pictures and really get that sense. And, not paying attention to what was going on actually, because that was just what was going on, but really feel that connection. So I know kind of a little bit of what you're talking about because I could connect. And I thought it was religion at that time, but I knew it was more than that. So
Mhm.
I had a sense of that when I was young, and I always felt different because of it, like separate. Like
Mhm.
I grew up, like I grew up in a huge family with lots of cousins, aunts, but I always felt a little different, like separate, because I didn't know what they believed. I thought they believed what they were taught, and I knew I didn't.
Right.
So I had a little sense of heaven during those years.
Yeah. I remember like when I would just be in the unified fields and just feeling all that love. And I looked at that unconditional love, and I realized there's no judgment in unconditional love. And I looked at the earth and it's like humans just judge each other all the time. It's like, and I realized there is no unconditional love. I could see that our pets had it. My cats had unconditional love, but I could see that the humans didn't. And it was really, I would listen to the preachers or whoever, and they would preach about it. It was like, but you're not doing that. Like, you're
Yes.
talking about this God. If you sin, then this is terrible. And it's like, wait a second, that's not how it goes. Like, that's not unconditional love.
I have this funny story. So I grew up Catholic, and we would have to go to confession with the school. We would go on Wednesdays, and you had to stand in line and then go into the confessional. So, and everybody's in line. And so I would go in, and I never knew what to say because I was a very quiet, good kid. And I would go in there and make up stories.
Right.
I actually would make up lies so I would have something to confess. And I was like, how ridiculous is that? So I would make up, like, I would say, I stole a chocolate from, I remember one time I said, I stole a chocolate out of my mom's pantry, and I ate it without her knowing. I didn't know what to say. So then he would say, go say your 8 Hail Marys or whatever. And I would go there and I would think, this is ridiculous. And, here I'm 5, 6 years old, and I would make up lies. I mean, it's, it's so funny looking
Yeah,
back.
I've heard multiple people say that. It's like, what are you supposed to say? Like, good grief.
But that's the condition and what we
Yeah,
saw, you know?
exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I feel it's very important to talk about things because I think my upbringing, there wasn't enough talked about, explained. We didn't talk about a lot of things. I mean, we talked about mundane things, but we didn't talk about the big things, the important things.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember being shipped off to school, and I was like, the only thing I want to learn is how the universe works. I was like, and they're not going to teach me how the universe works. Like, you know, everybody thinks like it's some big mystery. It's like, there's got to be, like, if you know how the universe works, then you can just work with the universe and you can just create. And all I ever was interested in really was consciousness and learning how the universe works.
Still interested in that.
Exactly. Right. Like, what
It's a,
is more interesting? And
I
what
know.
could be, what could possibly be more important?
I know, it's so cool. I mean, the first time that somebody said to me, you know, you're just a light being here in human form. And I'm like, oh, yes, that's true. The first time somebody said and I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's true.
Right? The first
Yeah,
time I heard you create your own reality, I was like, oh, that's true.
for sure.
Yep. And
Yes.
like, wow, I need to, and then immediately I thought, I need to learn how that works because my reality in this moment just sucks. I was not a happy camper.
Yeah. And you talk about you have like the story. I haven't finished reading your book yet, but you talk about your health story, and I'm very interested to hear more about that. Sorry, gotta take a sip.
Yeah, it's like, I knew that my health situation was directly connected to me not being a happy camper. And I knew that, because I was so not happy, that was affecting my health. And I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that my route back to healing was to learn how I'm creating my reality so that I could uncreate all of the crap I had created and start actually generating a reality to my liking.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear a lot more about that because I hear when you say about same happened to me. I became sick
Yeah,
because I was unhappy,
exactly.
because I was not living my truth,
Yep.
and I had conformed to the
Mhm,
world, and I was trying to fit in,
mhm.
and I shut my voice down. I was in fear of everything,
Yep.
unconsciously, not really conscious about everything.
Right.
And I really manifested all that in my body.
Mhm,
And I think I'm still now, I'm on the way to complete vibrancy and health.
mhm.
And it is through those beliefs and what you see and what you believe. Yeah. It's completely that. I believe our I we totally can heal ourselves completely and our bodies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's literally learning how the universe works and how our bodies work. There are universal laws that govern the universe and how we create, and there are biological laws about how our bodies work. And unfortunately, just like they don't teach us universal laws in school, they don't teach us biological laws in medical school either.
Yes. I was very surprised too to hear how little they teach nutrition and health to doctors. Like they don't.
They teach pharmaceutical law to
Hmm.
doctors. They teach pills. So basically they teach disease. And they
Hmm.
just say these symptoms mean this disease, which you give these pills. And
Hmm.
that's medical school when you look at it. And because what we are told is true, what we're told to focus on,
Hmm.
if we pay a whole bunch of money to go to medical school and they say, look for these symptoms because these symptoms mean this disease, and then this disease, you give these pills, that's what you look at. But we're not looking at biological law. We're not looking at how the universe works. We're not looking at how physicality is made manifest. So
Hmm.
we're not seeing that our bodies are directly responding to our thoughts. So when we're thinking thoughts of, oh my God, I'm not okay, I don't fit in, what am I going to do? How am I going to earn a living? Where's my rent coming? All of those types of thoughts that we all end up thinking, every single one of those thoughts generates a different symptom in the body. So for a specific thought pattern of I'm not okay, whatever that is, I'm not strong enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not pretty, all of those I'm not okay thoughts manifest as physical symptoms. And if you look at the physical symptoms in the body, you can see which thought patterns are out of balance because the body is showing you. So, like every single right-handed woman with left breast intraductal cancer has experienced the exact same trauma. And you can look and you can go, oh, this is why you have this thing going on in your left breast. If you're if you're left-handed, it'll be in the opposite. And it's like all we have to do is look at the body. Once we learn biological law, then we can just simply see the symptom and then know what thought patterns we need to readjust.
Mhm. Yeah, one big thing how I shifted that to like that I am statement that we do. You know, when you say an I, like you were saying, like when you do an I am statement, you're actually taking on that as
Exactly.
I am that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I learned, you could say part of me feels this way, you know, like if you're not in resonance or something. And that helped a lot by just not completely taking that on if you're on this journey, by saying, you know, part of me feels anxiety or whatever you want to say, instead of saying I am anxiety or
Right.
I am sick or whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so words have big power. And one of the things that helped me a lot is when I would get up in the morning, I would say, what lights me up today? I mean, it could be like picking out this purple shirt, you know, like we're both wearing, like it's the little things, like what would light me up, and carry that through everything. What you've, you know, put in your body, how you think,
Mm-hmm.
who you want to interact with, and how you want to think about things, and what you want to look at. That's another thing. What do you want to look at? Like
Exactly.
I was reading the other day about what blue light does to our eyes, coming back to our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that UV light or is bad for us, whatever. Some people think that, I don't, but some people have that belief. But the blue light goes straight into our eye roots and does do really big damage. Something, why are we creating devices that will actually destroy us, if you think about that?
Yeah. And we look out at the world, and most of the things in the world are designed to destroy us. We look at the genetically modified foods, the chemically altered foods, the 5G towers, all of the microwaves, all of these things that are really truly not very healthy for us or the planet.
Yeah, one thing that makes me sad is like the depletion of the earth.
Yeah.
That's why I call myself an earth guardian. It's something that's really dear to my heart, is because even if we grow, like let's say the best organic food on our soil, it's not the best food for us because our soil has been so depleted and polluted and sprayed and all of that. So just to bring awareness to that, and bring changes wherever we can.
Exactly. Because we're these grand beings of light here exploring the opposite, we've really been separated from our true nature. It's our true nature to live in peace and harmony and prosperity and community, but we've been separated, and, that community over there and this community over here, and, us versus them and all of that. It's not normal for us to live that way. It's not normal for us to live separated from nature. It's not normal for us to not be able to communicate with animals or plants or each other. If you're speaking Swahili and I'm speaking Japanese, like it's really hard to communicate. Right? We have separated ourselves. So now it's really all about learning to reconnect to our true nature so that we can all come back together in this oneness and restore our planet and restore our health, restore our lives, and start really living in heaven on earth.
I know. I love that, heaven on earth. Yes. I used to have a friend, she used to say, I cannot wait till I die and go to heaven. And I'm like, heaven is on earth. And we were talking two different languages. I was like, heaven is on earth. Heaven and hell is on earth, you know?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, we were talking two different languages. And so I realized that there is no preaching to people,
Yeah.
like I feel like the the one job, I don't call it a job, but the one thing for me to be is to be me, because I'm here for my purpose and just share my light and my thing. And maybe somebody hears it and feels inspired, and that's it.
Exactly. It was always so confusing to me, when I was 8 or 10 or 12 years old, and they'd say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would look out at all the jobs in the world and go, I don't want a job. I don't see anything out there that really lights me up. I don't want to be a clerk in a store. I don't want to be stuck at a desk all day long. And you're like, I just want to be free. I just want to be me. I just want to live. It was just so devastating that I couldn't figure out how to just be on this world. It took a long time to figure it out.
It's such a similar experience. Yeah. I mean, seriously, I remember going to like the school counselor to help you figure out what you wanted to be. And in Switzerland, it's like I was like 14. I was supposed to figure out what I wanted to be for the rest of my life at
Right?
14. And I wanted to say, I just want to twirl around in the grass and smell the air and
Right?
that, like you said, just be and be in joy and love. And I was like, oh, now I gotta pick one of these jobs.
I know. That
Yeah.
you'd have to take these tests, at least we did here in the States. You have to take
Yes.
this test, and then it would come back and they would tell you and be like, dietitian. Like, what's that? Like,
I think mine
I
came
always
back
got that. I don't know.
yeah, I think mine came back a nurse. I think mine was like a nurse. And now I think about it, I mean, they weren't too far off because I was like, I do want to nurture, other people. So I guess that would work. I didn't want to be a nurse, but
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I grew up as an athlete, as a figure skater. And when I was out on the ice, that was the only place that I could just be myself. I could just go out there and I could just train and I could just become the best version of me that I could be athletically. And that was sort of like my safe space. And I went up through the ranks, and once I got the highest ranking and achieved my gold medals, then it was like, okay, now you're done, you have to go get a job. I'm like, oh. So like my freedom ended, and now it's like, all right, now I have to go get a job. And it was Oh, it was devastating.
For me, it was similar, different, but similar with sports. So my dad grew up in the same small town I did, of course, and he became an Olympian in cross country skiing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so pushing himself. He didn't have a lot of support in his family because his parents were farmers, and so they didn't believe in dreams, and you had to work hard, and so he pushed himself to become what his dream, so of becoming an Olympian. And so of course his children had to be dragged along, and so I did sports all growing up, and he would always say, well, downhill skiing is just for wimps, cross country skiing is where the thing is. So we would be dragged out there little, since we could barely walk and we were on skis. And so it took me a joy of nature because we were always out in nature. I love nature. But I remember that feeling that you're talking about, being out on the ice, is the first time I was on the top of the hill and I was on down skis, not like cross country skis, alpine skis, or whatever you want to call them. And I was on the top of the mountain. The sun was going up because I had gone up with the first gondola. I had gone up and I was all by myself on top of this mountain, and the wind was blowing and my face was freezing over, and I was looking down this valley that had like the clouds still on them, and the sun was coming up, and I knew that moment. I can still feel that moment, and I've had many of those moments, but that's when I could be complete, in those moments, by myself out in nature with the divine.
Right. Yeah. I would do that. I would climb the tree in front of my house. I would just sway in the breeze in the tree, just being. Or I would go swimming in the lake and just be in the lake. And it was always, I could just be myself when I was just being either in nature or at the rink, just being in my body, being present in my body.
Yeah. I used to say that the stork had dropped me in the wrong place and put me in the mountains. I love the mountains, don't get me wrong, but I always yearn for water. Like water is my element. I
Yeah.
feel the best when I'm in it, on it,
Mm.
near it, smell it, hear it. Yes, that's like my element. So even when I lived it's funny, I lived, way up in the mountains, and I used to envision that I would ski down this mountain and I would ski down to the bottom. And then when I would get to the bottom, there would be sand and there would be the ocean, and I could go straight from the mountain down into the ocean. And that was my heaven. And now I live next to the water. So I'm really in bliss. There's something about water because I think water just is, and so it gives us like permission to be.
Yeah. I look at water like there's there's energy, air, and water, which, like they're all flowing and it's all the same thing. The water is just the physical form of that plasma energy. And, when we can see how water flows and how it seeks its own balance and how it goes around rocks and rivers, and, how we can use that, how we can navigate, smoothly and easily if we know what we're looking for. We watch the water, we can start to see how energy flows. And, once we start to tune in to the flow of energy, then we start to be in flow with life. And it's again, it's like using the different set of eyes, instead of using our physical eyes to see energy, turning on that third eye, closing the physical eyes so you can see the non-physical. That's when we can start seeing the energy and how the energy moves. And then we can start consciously moving that energy, because all energy is here to serve us.
It's really cool when you can do that.
Right?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. And yes. And commune with the animals in the ocean.
Mm.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things to do. Like, yeah. I have so many stories about that.
I love it.
Yeah, I was thinking also, not growing up, but in my adult years, like 30s and 40s, I was almost proud of swimming against the current.
Mm,
And it was so hard. And it was so hard work.
right?
But there was almost a sense of pride to feel strong.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that is so conditioned. That was so conditioned into me. And now it feels so free to go with, like you're saying, with the flow and see the flow and move with the flow.
Mhm.
It's so beautiful and such freedom in that.
Exactly. I remember when I really first started noticing energy, and started to be able to see how we move through life, and recognizing, like, in that third dimension, when we're believing that we're small and limited, and it's always, we move through resistance, we're always resisting, and it feels hard to move through life, because we always have to be working against that water in order to propel ourselves forward. But then when we shift into the higher dimensions, it's like, oh, I can just go with the flow, and I don't have to resist it anymore. And it's like everything shifts when we're able to make that transition.
Yeah. And when you can be in that, everything else takes care of itself and it's for us. So much happens just,
Right.
I know. I was like thinking when you were doing that motion of moving, I was like, oh, that's why we feel so tired and get so old. Like,
Exactly. It's that resistance that just wears us down. It's like driving with our foot on the brake all the time, it just wears everything down. But when we can turn it around and we can just open up and just be, when we're just being, then everything comes to us. We don't have to try to move to everything else. We're taught that we have to go get it. We got to climb to the top of the corporate ladder. Fight your way to the top. Like, we really actually don't. When we can just be, everything comes to us.
and the thing is, you were talking about that top of the ladder, and I was thinking like the journey there. So I call myself a pilgrim with a cause because it's in the journey. And even if you think about that, the fun part is getting, even if it's that top of the ladder, the fun part would be getting there, the journey there. Once you're up there, what are you going to do? Fall back down, or there's no high? I mean, you're there, so it's already over kind of thing. So it is like the journey, like the being in each moment, being present to it and consciously, like you were saying, like really seeing it consciously with your mind's eye,
Mhm.
tuning into that, like paying attention to that.
Exactly. I was
Yeah.
I was writing a blog today, and I was talking about how We're body, mind, and soul. And each one of those aspects of ourselves has a different language. And we're not really taught these languages. We're taught language itself, words. So we end up in our mind and just following those words all those times, those thought patterns, thought pattern, thought pattern, thought pattern, just going all the mind in the mind all the time, which then overrides that the voice in the of the soul that's in the heart that doesn't speak in words but speaks in subtle energy and sensation. And then the body speaks in symptoms. Like it's pain is a language, discomfort is a language. It's not a language of, oh my God, I'm being attacked by a disease. That's not what it's saying. Like, we need to learn the language.
This is so funny. You should see my paper. All these lines right here talk exactly about what you're saying. I wrote that today. So
We
our
are so in
mind.
sync today. That's so
Well, of course
funny.
we were. Of course. That's how it works, isn't it?
Right?
I mean, and that's how it works.
Yep,
And that is exactly how it works.
exactly.
Because I mean, we were in this mind in both of us, we were plugging into the same energy, picking from that, so the same ideas came, no, or the same. Yeah, I wrote down the same thing,
I
like i
love
wrote i wrote it down, bringing it into your body, actually into your chakras, like by thinking about the experience. So you by thinking about the experiences, you bring it into your solar plexus, and then by imagining them, like putting images to them, you bring in the emotions into your heart.
it.
And then by talking about them, you use your throat chakra. And then by writing them down, you're anchoring them into your sacral. So it's all about how they flow in your body.
Right.
Um, and I was talking, and I wrote down, when we have genuine, clear vision, seeing, knowing, whichever one you want to call it, it's a good practice to integrate that, like those think so to integrate that, you do use your mind, and you use your imagery, and you use all those things to integrate those things, to have that clear vision. So because sometimes we get those downloads like you had that,
Mhm.
and to remember that, to bring it into your body with those different things. And I wrote down, this is funny you were saying that, because I said, I believe when I integrate my body, my mind, and my soul into one cohesive entity, I raise my own vibration. And then I raise that raises the collective, and it also heals the earth itself. And so I feel so happy when that happens. That brings me bliss and joy. I mean, that's it.
Right? I mean, coming back to miracles, like this is a synchronicity that's really like a little miracle that we are so on the same page. Like we both dressed in the same colors today. We're both writing the similar things today. It's like, wow, what a beautiful synchronicity to be able to really appreciate this and gather joy from it, because we're focused in this direction. We're able to see and appreciate these things.
Yeah, and I think if you think about that, it's so cool. We tapped into that, and it's available to everyone. You know,
Exactly.
that's the beauty of it all. Like it's really available to everyone. That brings something. I was just thinking about something else. Is that so? That brings up something that I've heard a lot. Is like to be careful who you hang around with. You know, because let's say we are in a mastermind together, or we are in a space together, you do become one mind, you
Mhm.
know, so choosing wisely.
Exactly. You know, and once we start to, at least it's been my experience, that the more I am one within, the people around me also reflect that. And I come into synchronicity with the people around me. So my community, the people that I hang out with, it's all like us. Like, I don't hang out with people that are not like, not because, you know, like I don't want to hang out with, just I don't attract those people anymore. I really attract all of these people that are of the same mindset and are really shifting their consciousness and opening up to the grand beings of light that we actually are, so that we can see the divinity, we can see the beauty, we can see heaven on earth and start consciously creating it together. And life becomes such an incredible, magical journey. And that's available right here, right now for all of us. But we have to be willing to look for that. You know, we're so trained to look at the TV and look at what they're showing us, and we can't see any of the joy and the beauty and the miracles when we're focused on what they're telling us to look at. So I love this conversation that we're really talking about switching the set of eyes that we use. Start looking inside, start noticing the beauty, the magic, the miracles, the synchronicities, and really our connection to this beautiful planet.
I know it is. Yes. I hear what you're saying, and it brought me back to a time when the only times I could be in that state, I would call it, is when I was by myself and quiet, you know?
Yeah,
And it's beautiful now that I can be in that state no matter where I'm at and what I'm doing. And that comes through starting to seeing it and practicing it, you know? Like,
exactly.
so like just little steps. Just I don't know who listens to this, but if you want to give tips, each one of us has different things we can do. But
Exactly.
one of them is definitely unplug from all the craziness.
Yeah, whew, turning off the TV, getting rid of my TV was like the greatest thing I ever did for myself. Like, well, one of the greatest things. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize how much it impacted me negatively. You know, and I
Yeah.
wasn't just watching the news, you know, like I was being more, you know,
Hmm.
selective of what it was that I was watching, but at the same time there were just commercial after commercial after, you know, and it's like once I turned all of that off, like I thought I would really miss it. I don't miss it a single bit.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how quickly that it's kind of like when I quit, same thing when I quit eating sugar
Mm,
because I used to drink Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, and that kind of stuff in my 20s, you know.
mm.
And then I quit sugar, white sugar completely. And it only took, I think it took like a week. And then I didn't crave it at all anymore. Like it's it's a thing that when you turn it off, you can get over it quickly, you know?
Beautiful,
And I think white sugar is one of our worst enemies.
right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
People don't realize what is in all of our foods. And there's sugar in most everything. There's sugar and chemicals, inorganic substances that our bodies are really not designed to handle. Our bodies can handle anything, but we're really designed to be organic beings and actually eating organic living foods.
Yeah, I believe that too. I was also very surprised of the differences of European food versus American food. Like
Mhm.
I picked up a package of what do you call them, sausages, like German sausages one time, and
Yeah.
I was just looking at the ingredients in Switzerland,
Mm.
and then I saw the same ones here, the exact same ones in the store here in the US. And the ones here in the US had added sugar, added flavoring. I'm like, they were exact the same brand and the same thing. So I realized that even though they look the same, they might be totally different. So you have to really pay attention to what you know, paying attention.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's really, I find it to be kind of uh, a chore going to the grocery store, and really have it like kind of you have to look at the
You do.
ingredients. It's a sad fact of life these days.
Yeah, but it's how the world still works, is to try to keep us there and try to keep us all dependent, instead of taking, I mean, they want us to be like sheep, no?
Right, exactly. But the
So,
more that we start to wake ourselves up and become aware, we can really, there are so many ways that we can take our power back and take our food supply back and start growing our own foods, start sharing foods with each other. There are so many ways that we can get around, the big grocery store chains and really start taking our health back into our own hands.
yeah, so and talking about going back to talking about 2020, that was actually a great thing that happened because a lot of people realized maybe it's a good thing to grow your own food, and going back to basics.
Yep, exactly. More and more people are starting to wake up and recognize that
Yeah,
we have the power to change the world.
we do. And when we say they, who are they? We are they, if you think about it. We are it.
Yeah, exactly. So we are all one, and we can allow other people to make choices for us, but ultimately it's all ourselves.
Yes. And you were talking about energy earlier, and I was thinking, it's so cool when you're looking at other people and you see their light and you see them just as light energies. So I was thinking about when you were saying that, it's like it's cool when you can feel the energy around them and see them, and no matter what they say, you can still feel what they are. That's the cool thing.
Exactly.
So I didn't know you, and I knew you as soon as I met you. I knew you, even though I didn't know you. Does that make sense?
Exactly. For sure. Yep.
And then when you opened your mouth and you were talking about your experience, I'm like, oh yeah, that is cool. I want to be in her. I want to be more. I want to know more. I want to know more. So I love when you share. I wanted to say that when you share, it's beautiful. I want more.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same with you. We're in a group together and we get to share things each day. And so look forward to your shares and what's Lisa gonna share today? It's so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing here with all of us today. It's such an honor to have you here. Such a joy to have these conversations.
Thanks for having me. I had such a blast talking to you.
We'll have to do it again. Beautiful. So tell us, how do you help people? Who are your ideal clients and how can they find you?
So I have a website, and it's called Loving Life a la Lisa.
Ooh,
And I say it's insert your name there. So that's how you can connect with me. And you can connect with me on Instagram, really. Same thing, Loving Life a la Lisa. That brings you a link to everything I do. So that's how people can connect to me. And yeah, you have free chats. People want to know more about me, they can find out more about what I do.
Beautiful. And what's the process you do called soul melting?
Yeah, so one of my modalities I use is called Melt Your Soul. Yes, and that uses basically the 6 R's is reconnect, rebalance, um, rehydrate, release, remember, and renew.
Mm.
And it takes noticing what you notice with mindful meditation and some movements and some items to bring you back into a state of flow.
Wow, beautiful. Wow. I highly recommend people reach out to Lisa and learn more about what it is that she does, because she does beautiful, beautiful work. And it's always nice to be able to have more people that are awake and aware and doing beautiful work in the world and connecting all of us. Love this.
And I love that we share the same name.
I know. It's amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. And everybody who's been listening today, thank you all for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe to my channel. If this has been helpful to you, please share it with others so that they can benefit from this conversation as well. And until next week, create for yourselves a great week. Bye for now.